911, what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, Car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Behind the Crime Door. For everyone who's new here, I'm Kristen. Welcome to the doors. Hey, Gonzo. How are you, my dear? Good to see you. Hey, Hoosier. Good to see you, too. Hi, John. Hey, Pigeon. Hey, Josh the Posh. Welcome. Help me, Rhonda. Good to see you. Hi, Sierra. Hey, Carol. Good to have you with us. Hi, This'll Do Nicely. Hey, Ray Jones. Hi, Maria. How are you, my dear? Yes, the doors. We are the doors. Hey, Deb. How are you? Welcome, welcome, everyone. I've missed you. I can't believe it's been since Thursday since I was live, you guys. I will say that I had a trivia night at a local club on Saturday night, and I play poker on Friday nights. And it's kind of like game night. And there's like 8 couples that play with us. And we have been doing this for years and years and years with my best friend. And so anyway, we went to a local club on Saturday because they had trivia night. And there were 8 tables of, there were 8 tables of 8. So there were 8 teams, and we had 7 rounds, and then we had a final round, and our team won. I was absolutely floored. We all were. So that's where I was on Saturday night. Hey, Lipsha. Oh, Gonzo, thank you so much for updating. I talked to him earlier too, and he is doing well. And his dad's having some struggles, but he's hanging in there. Hey, Melissa. How are you? Good to see everyone. Tonight we're going to be talking about Flora. I thought it was time to get back to Flora. Again, I'm going to say it and over again. Flora doesn't get enough coverage. Flora's not talked about nearly enough. And I believe that we need to put more pressure on local and state law enforcement. I'm tired of the crickets and not hearing anything from them. I know that this is normal for Indiana and how they handle their cases, but this is ridiculous, and it's not. It's just not something that should be flying at this point in time. We're getting ready this year to go on 7 years of this case not being solved, and we just need to press on with them. Josh the Posh, if you are wanting to learn about Flora, I can tell you there is a couple of really good subreddits on Reddit that cover the Flora case, and you can get a lot of information there. I have a lot of Flora videos on my channel. You can go back and look at those. But yeah, it's really upsetting. So we're gonna talk about Flora tonight. But before we get to Flora, I've got some other things that I wanted to cover. And I think that they're important as well. And so let's get to it. I don't know if you guys heard. Oh, I also want to give a shout out to Deb, True Crime Notebook. We all love Deb, but she has an absolutely, you guys, amazing channel. She's new. Her channel's new and growing, and I just want to send everybody there. She did a wonderful tribute to Ray Hanisch, and I think that everybody needs to remember Ray. If you're not familiar with who Ray Hanisch is and you don't follow the Delphi case, Ray Hanisch was murdered, and it is was commonly believed that Garrett Kurtz was responsible for Ray Hanisch's murder. And there were no charges. And finally, Garrett Kurtz has been charged with Ray Hanisch's murder. And Ray is in everyone's hearts and minds, thinking about what this poor young man went through and his family, trying to get justice. It was ridiculous how long it took for this, but I'm glad that it actually happened for the family. And so hopefully we will see where this goes and how this works, and and if there will be a trial or if he'll eventually plead. But Garrett Kurtz is already in jail for murder. And for a long time, he was suspected as being a possible POI for Delphi. And so it's, I just really was touched by what Deb put together for Ray Hanisch. It's so upsetting to see some of these cases that just kind of don't get covered and they don't get talked about much. So, hey, Brian, good to see you. Hey, Boston, thank you for joining. So yeah, make sure you head over to Deb's channel and check that out. The other thing we're going to talk about, I don't know if you guys all heard, but there was a missing Texas 13-year-old girl who was found locked up in North Carolina over the weekend in a shed behind a house. And the man has been charged with trafficking. He's being held on $1.25 million bond. His name is George Ivan Santos Camacho. And he's been charged with over a half a dozen felonies, including human trafficking, child rape, after the deputies recovered the missing Texas 13-year-old in his shed. He's 34 years old, and he's accused of grooming her online on Discord. She was a gamer, and she played online games on Discord, and this just jumped out at me, and I was like, oh my goodness. This is frightening to me. He began grooming her and talking to her online, and eventually convinced her to meet him. He drove to Texas, to Dallas, to pick her up. And he actually abducted her and took her to Lexington, where he allegedly sexually assaulted her and kept her locked in this shed where he was living. The Dallas police have been looking for the girl, and they tracked her online communications to Camacho. And according to the Davidson County Sheriff's Office, they received a notification from the FBI on March the 10th. The content of the chat was consistent with grooming and enticement, the sheriff's office said in a news release. Video cameras in the area of the child's home did capture the suspect's car, which was registered to an address in Davidson County. Authorities found the vehicle in town and pulled it over. During the traffic stop, it was determined that the juvenile was locked in an outbuilding on the property. The sheriff's emergency response team entered the shed and recovered the little girl, who authorities said did not appear to have any physical injuries. She was taken to the hospital for evaluation and then returned to her family in Texas. I am just floored by this whole thing. A number for the property owner was disconnected Tuesday morning, and she told the Dallas-Fort Worth-based Fox 4 that Camacho had been living in this shed for about 2 years and was friends with her son. She said that she had taken him in to help him out. I'm not involved with whatever he's doing because I didn't know he was that kind of a person. Camacho is being held at the Davidson County Jail in Lexington on the $1.25 million bond, and he has been charged with child abduction, felonious restraint, trafficking, statutory rape of a child under 15, sex with a child under 15, and indecent liberties, all felonies. And there are additional charges pending. I wanted to show you a couple of things. Hold on. Okay. So here's a picture of the home that the woman lived in, and the shed was behind her home. This is the little tiny shed that this guy's been living in for 2 years, if you can only imagine. There was a mattress in there, and that's about it. um, I'm just floored, like I said, about the whole thing. And that's a picture of the suspect. So again, here we go. We need to, really think about and talk about how do we protect our children from these kinds of predators. They're everywhere. These stories are becoming the norm, almost to the point of we become numb to them because we hear about them so often. And I just think I just don't know what the answers are to fix this problem in this country. And I know it's not just here, it's everywhere, but we have to start somewhere and we've got to do something to protect our children. When I heard about this story, when it broke over the weekend, I just couldn't believe it. There's, it's just terrible. But hold on a second. I have a short video that I'm going to play for us. Hold on. Oh. Okay. So we're going to listen to this. Tell me if you guys can hear it, please.
This morning, a missing 13-year-old is home safe with her family, rescued near Charlotte, North Carolina, more than 1,000 miles away from her home in Texas.
It was hard, heartbroken, very scared for her life.
The teen's mom says her daughter met the alleged abductor, 34-year-old Jorge Camacho, playing video games online, and they communicated on an app for months.
Content of the chat was consistent with grooming and enticement, and he enticed her to actually leave the home where he picked her up.
Investigators believe he picked up the teen to traffic her for sex.
Kids come missing and they're being sold. And we knew that she had left with this person that we never met on the internet. We fear the worst.
The FBI Violent Crime Task Force in Texas, coordinated with the sheriff in Davidson County, North Carolina, quickly zeroing in on where they believed she was. Finding the teen locked in this green shed, video shows the conditions inside. The property owner saying she had no idea someone was in her shed.
I never see her inside my house, on the camera. I didn't know she was even here.
This case, another example of the rising problem of human trafficking. Of the more than 365,000 children who were missing in 2020, it's estimated 30% were actively trafficked. Last month, 8 girls, including a runaway from Arizona, were rescued in a human trafficking bust in California. Parents are urged to be attentive to their kids' online activity.
That's how these things happen, is not being supervised, and these kids are very sharp.
Camacho is charged with several felonies, including child abduction, human trafficking, and statutory rape. He's being held on a $1.2 million bond.
Hi, everyone.
So again, it's just, it goes back to what do we do to keep our kids safe? And I'm so glad that they caught him. But the thought that he was going to traffic her to other men is just unbelievable. And these predators are everywhere. And they're on Discord, they're on YouTube, they're on Facebook, they're on all of TikTok, all of the social media programs that our kids and our grandkids use. So I just want everybody to stay mindful and make sure that you're talking to your loved ones and your friends about this stuff, because just turning a blind eye to it isn't the answer. And I'm sure that the mother of this little girl had no idea that she had been talking to this man, 34 years old, my God, for months online. And it's very, very possible that the girl didn't even know he was 34 years old. So it goes back to the whole catfishing, the and just how vulnerable our children are. And I really it's just really, like I said, it's just really upsetting. Hey, Miss Siren, how are you? Hey, Jamie, how are you? Hey, CJK, good to see you. Yeah, the social media applications, these companies don't care. They don't care about security. They don't care about your kids and what's happening with your kids. I don't believe any of them do. The one thing about, I think once you become active in the true crime world and start covering cases and start listening and reading the news and newspapers from all over the country and following, it's like it almost becomes overwhelming at a point because we realize just how prevalent this stuff is. And we just need more voices to talk about it and to educate. And there just needs to be more and more and more education. And Ray, I'm so glad that you are talking to your daughter about this because it's very important. And I was just talking about this with a friend today. These crimes are so not punished severely enough. They are basically slapped on the wrist and just sent on their merry way. There was a city councilman that I just watched who was sentenced for child rape. And I believe the person was under the age of 14 as well. 13, maybe 12. I can't remember. But he got 7 years. And I'm just like, 7 years? Are you kidding me? I mean, in some states like California, they're all about reform and jail reform, whatever, and they're letting criminals out early. They were just talking about the fact that Paul Flores was just sentenced to 25 years to life for the murder of Kristen Smart 26 years later after it happened. Okay. So this family had to wait 26 years for justice. All right. And he was found guilty in October of 2022. And his attorneys pushed off and tried to get sentencing pushed off for a while. And his sentencing just happened. But they were talking about it after the sentencing. And because of the California reform that's supposed to be helping get criminals out of there and make their jails safer, I guess, he can be eligible for parole in 15 years. So my point is, why do we even sentence them to 25 years to life if you're just going to turn around and let them out in 15 years? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And the laws need to be fixed. We need people to stand up to our lawmakers in our states and say, we are tired of these predators and pedophiles and people trafficking our children and murdering our children. I hate to say this, I'm a huge animal lover, but you can get more time for drugs and selling marijuana and hurting animals than you can for hurting children. I don't know if harsher sentences would be a deterrent for these individuals, because I think they are the depravity and the evil within them to do this. I know that in the mental health community, they talk about it being a sickness. I consider it a cancer, and you can't cut it out. Somebody in chat just mentioned, Thistle Do Nicely said, these predators cannot be rehabilitated. And I guess my point of view is, even if they say they can, would you trust one of them with your child or your grandchild or your niece or your nephew? I wouldn't ever again. And that's, I'm sorry. These children are ruined and hurt for life. They'll never have a normal, carefree rest of their childhood and adulthood because of the scars that are caused and created by these predators. So, and you're right, Maria, it may not prevent a first offense, but it could definitely keep them off the streets. And if they're behind bars longer, they don't hurt others. And that's the most important. And I agree, Ray. I'm when it comes to child sexual assault and child abuse of any kind, I'm not for rehabilitation at all. I firmly believe that you throw away the key. It's just how I feel. So, it makes me damn mad is all I can say. And I'm just tired of every time I turn around, it's another story. So we're going to move on from that. And we're going to talk about something that is so important to me. So very important to me, because I have people that I love who have been victims of stalking and harassment. I have been a victim of harassment, and it is not something that's funny or something that you feel is something that you can get over right away. It's very serious. And when you feel threatened and you feel like your security has been stolen or robbed from you, there's nothing quite like it. Hey, Miracle Hearts. How are you? Welcome. So moving right along, let's get to it. I'm sure that all of you have heard, and if not, we're going to learn about it right now. But there was a couple from Redmond, Washington, that was killed over the weekend. Along with the suspected stalker. So, a gunman broke into their home in Redmond, Washington, and shot and killed a podcaster, her husband. Her mother was able to escape. She was, hold on one second. I'm trying to get my screen up so that we can watch the news broadcast of this. But her mother was able to get out of a window, and she ran to the neighbor's to call 911. She knew what was happening. This person was known to them. She had, the podcaster was female, and she had talked to police about him. In fact, she had a court date this week about a restraining order, to get a restraining order against him. And he didn't let that happen.
Podcaster kills her and her husband at their home in Redmond. The Redmond police chief says investigators are trying to serve a protection order against the suspect before the brutal murders.
Fox 13's Frankie Thompson is joining us from outside of the home with details on how the two first crossed paths.
The Redmond police chief says the woman and the suspect met on an app called Clubhouse, a podcast chat app for people looking for employment in the tech industry. But their communication took a very scary turn. At one point, he was calling her 100 times in a day, even threatening to burn himself and a tree at this house behind me. Court documents say investigators got involved because she told them she never gave the suspect her number or her address. In the first homicide in the city of Redmond since 2021, a crazed stalker obsessed with a woman killed her and her husband before turning the gun on himself.
This is the absolute worst outcome, for a stalking case.
Police Chief Darrell Lowe says this man, 38-year-old Ramin from Texas, is the suspect. He came to the neighborhood in this red truck Tuesday overnight.
The suspect broke into the home via a bedroom window, that bedroom being the mother's. She did encounter the suspect. She was aware of what was occurring, and she knew or realized that she needed to get out and get help.
Police say the mother of the wife ran for her life to a neighbor's house to call 911. When officers arrived, the mother and neighbor led them to the home.
As officers approached the front of the home, a male later identified as the husband of the victim was seen in a doorway. As officers tried to communicate with him, he collapsed and became unresponsive. Officers evacuated him from the front of the house and realized that he had been shot.
First responders performed CPR, trying to save his life, but he soon died. During the investigation, officers found the man's wife shot in the master bedroom, Ramin dead from shooting himself. The petition for protection order, filed on March 3rd, says Ramin would leave the woman voicemails more than 10 times a week, sending gifts and flowers to her home, even saying he hired a jazz band to play outside her house for 2 hours, but then called it off. The documents say the suspect would also leave her husband 20 messages a day. He even found her friends' addresses and phone numbers without their permission. Chief Lowe says a restraining order was officially filed with the city's prosecuting attorney's office, with a hearing scheduled for March 17th.
A restraining order is simply a piece of paper that allows officers to take enforcement action should a suspect violate the court order, but a piece of paper does not protect a person when someone is intent on causing them harm.
Chief Lowe says it was challenging serving the order to Ramin because he was a long-haul truck driver, always traveling the country for work.
It was difficult to, I'll say, pin him down to a location. It wasn't as though he was local and we had a local address to where we could either do surveillance or find him, serve the protective order, etc. He was in a different state, traveled across the country as part of his employment. So that was the biggest challenge.
Chief Lowe says the woman and her family worked very closely with detectives since becoming aware of the crazed stalking situation in December 2022, even adding extra surveillance cameras to the home.
In this case, the victim did everything that they possibly could. Unfortunately, this person, broke into their home and killed her. And it is a tragic event.
As police continue their investigation here at the home, the medical examiner's office is working to positively identify the woman and her husband. Reporting in Redmond, Frankie Thompson, Fox 13 News.
Man obsessed.
So my point about all of this is that you have to take stalking, harassment, unwanted advances, unwanted emails, unwanted texts, unwanted phone calls seriously. When someone will not leave you alone and you have told them, you know, to leave you be, then that's it. I mean, these people are grown adults. No means no. Not interested. But a lot of times people become infatuated on or fixated on someone, and that someone may not even truly know that that person has become fixated on them. In this case, she never gave him her address or her phone number or anything like that, but he was able to track her down, which is scary. So talking to people online, talking to people in Discord, talking to people anywhere, you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know who that person is on the other side of that keyboard. And I'm here to tell you that it is scary. If this can happen, which we now know it does happen, and it's happened again, everyone who is getting these harassment, stalking, crazed people all over social media, following them, trying to make their lives a living hell. The laws need to be changed in this country. The laws need to be changed to protect people who are being stalked. And CJK is right. Those stalking laws are lax. The police will tell you there's nothing they can do until violence has occurred or threatened. And even with threatening of violence, sometimes that's not enough. Just like the officer told us just now in that news report. Even though you get an order of protection, that's just a piece of paper. That doesn't keep you safe. When these people are making these kinds of crazed, because it's the only thing I can think of as the way to really describe it, these crazed and continuous unwanted advances, somebody needs to be able to call law enforcement and say, this is what's happening. Here's the record of this. I have asked and asked. I need help, and they should be allowed to help you. It shouldn't be oh, well, there's not anything that we can do. Has he shown up at your house? Has he done this? Has he done that? Are you going to wait until he is standing in my living room and ready to shoot me? Because that's exactly what happened in this case. And I don't understand a lot about it, Ray. I don't understand why people do this either, but there's a lot of really messed up mental health issues going on with people. And again, there's just predators out there. There are people out there, and men especially, who think that they can own women. And that if that woman tells them no or rebuffs them in any way, shape, or form, then nobody else is going to have her either. That's a mindset out there. And I agree with that too, CJK, as far as I don't buy that unless he owns his own rig, because the carrier would know exactly where he was. They have to have some idea of how to keep track of what these guys are doing when they're out there driving their vehicles. Miss Siren says, I had the best judge who served the permanent order to my stalker as he showed up in court. He was there to show power over me, but the judge did great. That's awesome. So glad to hear that, and I hope you stay safe. A real disgusting creep in our town stole a little girl sleeping in her own bed and assaulted her in her yard, went to jail for 20 years, got out, and while on parole, started groping girls in stores. It's everywhere. Yeah, Ray. Well, there is that. More and more women are becoming armed and learning to protect themselves. That still doesn't mean that something horrible can't happen to you. And it's frightening. It's just really frightening. And I just think that this opens up that door to talking about the stalking and the harassing behavior that goes on YouTube, that goes on Facebook, social media, where these people think that they can just do all sorts of things to people and get away with it, and nothing is ever done to them. And it's very scary, and it's very frightening. And this just brings it to me, it brings those other cases and those other incidences into the spotlight to realize how truly horrific outcomes can happen. And you can't just shake your head and say, oh, it's just a podcast. It's just a podcaster overreacting, or it's just a YouTuber overreacting, or whatever, because that's not what's going on. 9 times out of 10, these people are not overreacting. Hold on a second here. Okay. So I really, really wanted to talk about that, because it's it just when I saw that it had happened, all I could think about was this isn't happening. So I've got one more video for us to watch on it. Just give me 1 second here.
Was still able to track her down. Today, rather last week, officers were called out to her home, where they found the woman's husband, who was shot in the chest at the front of the house. The woman, the wife in this, was found dead in a bedroom, along with the suspect who had turned the gun on himself. We've learned that the wife had filed for a protection order earlier this month against that suspect. In it, she says the suspect was calling her and leaving messages more than 10 times a week. The police chief says a hearing for a restraining order was just days away, but serving an order on the man was hard because he was a truck driver who traveled constantly. Well, we do have this update for you from Texas. That's where the suspected stalker was from. Fox 26's Natalie He spoke with his ex-wife, the ex-wife of the suspect, who said she never thought he'd be capable of something like this.
Well, we spoke to his ex-wife on the phone today. She didn't want to have her face shown on camera or have her voice recorded, but she tells me the two of them were married for 7 years and they even share a daughter together. But she tells me she never thought he would be capable of such a horrific act. Court records show Neda Meshabi filed for divorce from 38-year-old Ramin Koda Karam Rezai in 2018. Over the phone, Neda, who works for Harris County, say her and Ramin are originally from Iran and have a 7-year-old daughter together. But the two have no other family in the U.S. Neda said that lack of support led Ramin to begin confiding in her in his romantic relationships after their divorce. In particular, Neda said she remembered his infatuation with 33-year-old Zoreh Sadeghi, a podcaster he'd met on the social media app Clubhouse and developed a friendship with. Neda said Ramin told her the two were talking on the phone often and had met in person more than once, until one day Sadeghi apparently cut it off. But court documents tell a different story.
This is the absolute worst outcome, for a stalking case.
Last Friday, Redmond police in Washington state say Ramin broke into Sadeghi's home, shot her and her husband before turning the gun on himself. In an application for an order of protection filed just 2 weeks before her murder, Sadeghi said Ramin would call her and her husband dozens of times a day, sent gifts, and showed up to their neighborhood several times in hopes of spotting her.
This is a classic case of someone who was stalking someone who became obsessed with someone who had a public personality and then was under the false belief that there was actually some potential for a relationship. And when that wasn't happening, he took the next step. You got to be careful who you engage with to begin with. So I would certainly encourage people not to immediately engage with somebody until you find out who exactly that person is.
His ex-wife also tells us that Ramin had started his own trucking business. The address to that business came back to these apartments here behind me in Memorial City. We attempted to speak to anyone who might have known him, but all of them declined. In Houston, Natalie He, Fox 13 News.
Sorry, guys. So, yeah, it's something that we need to take more sorry. It's something that we need to take a lot more seriously. And when people talk about it or talk about what's happened to them, we need to really listen and pay attention. And again, we don't know who, you just have to be careful who you talk to, and who you think are friends and who you think are people that you know, because really in all honesty, you don't know who these people are. And even if you've met them, it says that they met once or twice until she called it off. It sounds like, at least that's what his ex-wife is saying, but it sounds like she didn't, he was acting possessive and crazy almost from the get-go. So I think she probably didn't want anything to do with him, and he's right. People become obsessed with, as fans of what, even if it's a YouTube channel or a podcast or whatever, and they think they know these people and they're fans of them, which is fine, all fine and good until it turns into some crazy stalking kind of incident. And Josh, I'm so sad to hear that you had to go through that last year. Nobody, should have to be assaulted or mugged or whatever. I can't even imagine. It will be so hard to get that your security or your feeling of being safe back after something like that happens. So I'm sorry that you had to go through that. And I am also glad that you're here to talk about it, that it didn't end in, something far worse. And Ray's right. A lot of states and a lot of law enforcement agencies don't act until it's too late. And we had an incident here just a few years ago. Young mother, she had 2 small children and had just had a new baby. The father of her 3 children, she was not married to, and he was a person who was in and out of jail, had all kinds of issues. Hey, Mitzi, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for becoming a member and supporting the channel. I appreciate you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the doors. And she had gotten an order of protection against him. He had been in jail. He had been threatening her, and she had the order of protection. She had called police here 3 different times that he had threatened her while he was in jail. He got released, and the very first thing he did was he went to her apartment. And she lived in a 2nd floor apartment of an older house, and he broke in and he killed her. And it was so, so sad. She had a 3-week-old baby and 2 small children, and they lost their mother. And it goes to show you that that order of protection doesn't protect you. So I don't know what the heck this is. All right. Okay, so let's go on and get into Flora. So for everybody who's new to Flora, let's start here. Hang on one second, guys. So on November 21st of 2016, someone set a fire to a home in Flora, Indiana, killing 4 young sisters, nearly killing their mother, and critically injuring a volunteer firefighter, as well as a and he also is a Carroll County deputy, Drew Yoder, and severely injuring another Carroll County officer. About a month and a half after the deadly fire, investigators finally confirmed that they had found accelerants in the home and that it was an arson, and so that the 4 girls were murdered. A month after that, the Delphi murders occurred of Abby and Libby on the Monon High trails. 6 years later, we're still waiting for this arsonist to be brought to justice. The family members of the 4 victims are mourning these girls each and every day. And they are frustrated, so frustrated at the investigation's progress and how it is being handled by the police. Galen Rose is the mother of the 4 sisters. And she says it's been years since she's heard anything from law enforcement. And she will continue, and she continues to say that it has been far too long without any answers. The house that sits at the corner of Columbia and Division Streets in Flora still has all of the burn marks on the siding. It has all of the broken windows. It's been boarded up, and boxes and Rubbermaid boxes of toys sit out on the front porch. There are candles and crosses that are at the home. People continue to leave toys and all sorts of mementos for the girls, and they're put in these Rubbermaid tubs on the front porch. Somebody intentionally set this fire and took these 4 girls' lives. Jacqueline Partlow, who is the great aunt of the 4 sisters, she lives in Delphi, and she says she doesn't come over here to Flora anymore because she cannot stand to drive by and see that house. Indiana State Police continues to say that this isn't a cold case. It doesn't dull the pain that the family's in, however. Hearing that does not dull their pain. Galen says she wears their names every day. We need to hear their names. Kiana, Kiara, Cariel, Kiani. For justice. Partlow said her nieces were happy and full of life, and they didn't want to do anything but go to school and be with their friends and go to cheerleading. She was looking at a cheerleading video just the other day, and they were happy. Whoever did this, if they're not quitting, they're hiding. And if they're not hiding, they're getting told not to talk. The loss of these young girls brings more than sadness now for my family, and there is also anger, Partlow says. She claims they haven't heard from detectives in years, and she's upset that the police early on said her family wasn't cooperating fully with the investigation. That's a lie. And I want them to know they're not doing anything for us, she said. We've trusted the system, and the system has failed us. She also feels her niece's investigation has not been handled equally when compared to nearby Delphi, which happened after the Flora Fire. Partlow is friends with family members of Abby and Libby, and she's thrilled about the arrest in that case. But the attention and investigation, she says, has been different in Flora. And anyone who delves into this case, you guys, finds that out. This investigation and the attention that this investigation is getting is so completely upside down compared to what the Delphi case had, is mind-boggling. And we are angry, not only because they haven't done anything, but because the differences in the 2 cases, Partlow said. We were here first, and nobody seemed to give a damn. I just want to know what happened to my nieces, and then we can rest easy. In a statement, the Indiana State Police told 13 News that it has and will continue to use all resources available to us in an effort to solve this crime. This is an ongoing investigation, and detectives continue to investigate all tips and leads that are received. Boy, isn't that a nice little canned statement? Puts everything in a nice little package with a little red bow. But we're going on 7 years. The Indiana State Fire Marshal also has a reward of up to $5,000 for information that leads to an arrest and conviction. Family members are still confident that the person responsible will be found. And they want this arsonist caught so that their family can find peace finally. We're going to get justice. We're going to get it, Partlow said, because somebody isn't going to be able to live with themselves too long. 13 News learned the girl's mother has filed a lawsuit against her landlord, alleging there was no working smoke detectors in the home, which breaks the Indiana law. That requires at least 2 working smoke alarms in every rental property. The lawsuit was filed in the U.S. District Court in Hammond, Indiana, against Birch Tree Holdings and the True Landlords. The case is expected to go to trial this year in 2023. Hang on again. I'm going to play a video, so just give me a second, you guys. Doggone it. Oh my goodness, my mouse is not doing what I asked. Come. Oh, come on. Are you kidding me?
But state police have said they will not give up. The Johnson is in Florida this morning with where that investigation stands. Sam?
Well, Julia, this house still stands on the corner of Columbia and Division Streets, and it's here where these 4 young girls are still honored today. If you take a closer look here at the candles that line the front steps of this home, one with each of their names on it, 11-year-old Kiana Davis, 9-year-old Kiara Phillips, 7-year-old Carrielle McDonald, and 5-year-old Kiani Welch. This morning, the investigation into exactly what happened here 6 years ago is still active and ongoing. That's according to Indiana State Police. In fact, Superintendent Doug Carter told our Bob Siegel he came here on his way to Delphi last month before announcing an arrest in that case. Superintendent Carter says the Delphi murders and this house fire are 2 very different cases, but both tragic loss of life in very young people. This was top of mind when Carter visited this house 3 weeks ago today.
I sat across the street in that gravel lot and looked at that house that has the same exact remnants of a fire that we saw now almost 6 years ago this month. Boarded windows and black soot on the outside. And it just broke my heart that it was still there because I hadn't seen it in some time.
Superintendent Carter says he hopes he can soon make an announcement here in Flora, just like he did over in Delphi. Now, as for this case, Indiana State Police say they are actively investigating every tip that comes in. This tip line is still open, and there is still a reward up to $5,000 for any information leading to an arrest in this case. By the way, you can leave an anonymous tip, and we will have that link for you on our website, WTHR.com. We're live in Florida this morning. Samantha Johnson, 13 News.
Today marks 6 years since a house fire in Flora, Indiana took.
Okay. Galen goes on to say that it's been so hard for her. And when she says that, it's mind-boggling how hard it's truly been. She took a work break from her Northern California job to talk to Fox 59. And from the front seat of her car, she described her now no-frills life. I just literally work all day from 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. in the morning until like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I go home, I watch TV, I talk to my friends, and I talk to my family. I really don't do anything else with my life at this point right now, said Galen. She left Flora about a year after the fire that killed all 4 of her children: Kiana Davis, age 11, Kiara Phillips, age 9, Carrielle McDonald, age 7, and Kiani Welch, age 5. 2 months after the November 26th fire, the blaze was classified as arson. Galen says despite having other family members in the small Carroll County town, there was just too many reminders of the horrible loss of her daughters, but still the memories are never far away. Wiping tears from her eyes, Rose explains how it still haunts her. It never leaves me. I think about it. I even sometimes go back to that place. It's deep. It's dark. I will never forget. Never. It will never go away. Her voice trails off, and then she adds, unfortunately. The house where Rose and her girls live looks little changed 6 years after the fatal fire. It still stands on the corner of Main Street and Columbia and is boarded up, but there are still broken windows upstairs. In the attic, you can still see the soot and the damage that was done by the fire on the outside of the house. Sheets of plywood cover windows on both floors. Charring caused by the fire is still very visible, and it's heaviest on the front porch. And this was the entrance used in attempts to reach the girls. Each time, heavy smoke drove the firefighters out. Galen Rose made it out before she was sent to a hospital. Witnesses say they heard desperate cries. The girls and their mother were screaming for each other in vain. Eyewitnesses said that it was the most heart-wrenching thing to listen to and witness. Upon the house's porch today, you're going to find a half a dozen plastic bins. In them is an assortment of stuffed animals, dolls, candles, crosses, with the names of the 4 lost little sisters. The items were part of a makeshift memorial, and now they are covered with years of dust and grime. There have been no arrests in this case. And Galen was asked if she had any idea or suspicion about who could have set this fire that killed her 4 daughters. And she replied, nope. I would never think a person would want to set me on fire. She continued, I sometimes think as though the probe goes on, the less they think about it and the more they can just sweep it under the rug. The Indiana State Police is the lead law investigative agency in this fire investigation, and a spokesperson insists that the case is a priority. But in 6 years, they've made no arrests. Not only that, but there's been very little updates. And Rose does admit it has been years since she's been updated on this investigation. Months after the Flora Fire, just 8 miles away from Delphi, the bodies of Abigail Williams and Liberty German were discovered. That investigation featured multiple news conferences and multiple police disclosures. Released to the public were a pair of suspect sketches, a video of a person of interest, and an audio clip of a man's voice thought to be involved with the girls' murders. The police disclosures were used to prompt people to call in tips. Even after the arrest of Richard Allen, state police reported that more tips were pouring in. The Flora investigation has been distinctly different. There is a reward poster on the homepage of the Indiana State Police website, but law enforcement involved in this case has been so tight-lipped. Carroll County Sheriff Tobe Lesenby denied the request to speak with Deputy Drew Yoder, who was hospitalized for weeks after 3 failed attempts to enter the burning building to rescue the girls. Lesenby also nixed an interview with the Flora Fire Chief, Todd Trent. We submitted a request to speak with the lead investigator. State Police Superintendent Doug Carter shot that down. In a brief interview with Fox 59 reporter Max Lewis, Carter offered this cryptic comment about the Flora investigation. There's a couple pieces that we need, and those that know what those pieces are know what I mean. So I'll leave it at that. There's horrible people out there, Rose said, about the person or people who started this fire. But 6 years later, she still hopes someone somehow will be brought to justice. Yes, I have hope. I pray every day. I talk to my family and my friends about it. I try not to be on the subject too much for my emotional and mental state, but I pray every day that something comes about. At the end of this interview, Rose was again in tears despite her best intentions not to cry. Can't help it. I'm hurt. I'm really hurt as a mother, and I would never stop interviewing. I will never stop talking to you about my babies because I have no reason to stop. And I truly feel that way every day. Why will they not allow those involved to talk? Why is Tobe Lesenby keeping them silent? What the heck is going on in this investigation? Let's listen. Okay, Ann Johnson, I don't know where you're getting your information, but she has spoken to the police. She has done everything that they've asked of her. So I don't know where you're getting your information.
Arson. 4 young girls killed. A cold case with no leads.
When was the last time you talked to an investigator?
Some years, I'm going to say.
Fox 59's chief investigator Steve Brown looks for answers.
6 years later, no arrests, not even any apparent suspects. So why won't law enforcement talk about the Flora Fire?
Fox 59 investigates. Monday at 10.
How do I know? Because I get my information from Galen. That's how I know. Where do you get your information? Are you speaking to her? There is no way that I am throwing Galen Rose under the bus for her daughter's murder. I'm sorry. I don't need to verify my information. Galen is a very reputable source. She lived it. She's still living it. Her 4 daughters are dead. She wakes up to that every single morning. And had law enforcement not come out and made the comment that they did, we wouldn't even be here. You know what, Anne? I'm just about ready to send you packing off of my channel. I am. I don't care if what she was selling out of her house. That doesn't give anyone the right to try to kill her and her children. Tragedy. You have no idea what you're talking about. Have you lost a child? Sorry, guys. I'm not putting up with that. You guys know how I feel about anyone who comes into my channel and tries to blame the victim blame or blame the families. Thank you, Lipsha. Thank you, thank you. She's done. She's gone. I won't put up with that on my channel. If she wants to start her own channel and put up her own stuff, she's not going to come in here and tell me. I have been covering this case. This case means so much to me. I am emotional about it, and I am not going to put up with this. There is a lot more going on in Flora than meets the eye. And I'm here to tell you that Carroll County is behind part of it. I don't know if they are trying to mitigate what they did wrong that night, but I'm here to tell you they took those 4 little babies out of that house and took them to the fire station before the coroner arrived and laid them on concrete. And I am just tired of people trying to blame it on them. I don't care what she was doing. I don't care what she was selling out of her kitchen. That gave no one any right to do what happened to her. And I'm over it. Sorry, you guys. Sorry. It's been 6 years. It's too long. Sorry, guys. Didn't mean to get so emotional, but she is. If you listen to the deposition of the owners of the house, she is absolutely wrong. You just have to look at what's going on. There is so much going on here. We've got a house that was possibly used in a fraud attempt for insurance. It wouldn't put anything past me. Josh, the homeowner, and his partner have had other properties mysteriously burned to the ground. There is just so much. No, the family is not holding back, GC King. It's not a good point. If you follow the case and if you've listened to me cover the case, because I'm a fact-based channel, I don't put out garbage. I don't put out things that I don't vet or know about. And I just want you to know there is just so much that we could talk about this case that doesn't make any sense. And I'm tired of everyone defending Doug Carter and Tobe Lesenby and Carroll County. I mean, come on. Somebody posted early on, I saw it in chat, just talk to the Randalls. No kidding. The fire chief resigns. The fire chief father is the lead fire investigator for the state of Indiana for this case. And he's the one who tried to tell everybody that there was accelerants in this house and that this was set. And he was shut down and absolutely forced to resign. I believe that yeah, I agree, Sierra. I totally agree, because she there's a lot going on here. This is an African American family in a very highly racist area. And if people don't want to believe or understand that, then I don't know what to tell them, but just go research it. There's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. And, Indiana keeps telling us that they're going to continue to use all ongoing resources available to them to solve this case, but they won't hold a news conference and tell us what's going on and what's happening. I mean, it's just pathetic, really pathetic. There's a lot of crazy happenings around this case, and that's what I can tell you. A lot of crazy happenings. And Adam Randall was the fire chief that resigned, and it is highly suspicious. I think it's very crazy that nobody from any of the major news stations in Indianapolis can get an interview with Todd Trent, the current fire chief in Flora, to discuss this case, because Tobe Lesenby, the sheriff in Carroll County, was telling them no. Yes, Josh, many tentacles. This area in Indiana is very well known for being racist. I mean, it's I'm sorry to say it, but you have to call it out for what it's worth. And you've got this family that feels like nothing is being done. And I think after you listen to the body cam footage of Drew Yoder the night of the fire, it is apparent that something is extremely wrong. It took forever for the Flora Fire Department to arrive. Other fire departments from miles and miles away arrived before them. The Flora Fire Department is 500 yards from the house. When Drew Yoder ran out of that house after first trying to get in to get the girls, he immediately jumps in his car. He drives the 500 yards to the fire department, and you can hear him asking them what they're doing. They're kind of just standing around, and they've been called for this fire. And he's like, come on, guys, we've got people in this house. And so even Drew Yoder knew something was up because they weren't responding. Don't tell me they didn't know who lived there. There are dirty little secrets in Florida, CJK. I firmly believe it. And I also believe that whatever happened that night, whether it was incompetence, which I firmly believe there was incompetence. My God, when they first arrived, they started breaking out the windows on the first floor. Who the heck breaks out windows when we know that fire is a living thing and needs oxygen to survive? Why didn't somebody put a ladder up next to the girl's window, break that window out, and pull them out? Why was that not done that night? That question will bother me until the day I stop breathing. What fire department in their right mind would not have put a ladder up to that second floor window and get those girls out? They could be heard screaming for their mother. And yes, Drew Yoder risked his life. You could hear him. You can actually hear him basically dying in that house as he was choked to death on the smoke. And they had to pull him out. So Drew was a hero. He definitely was a hero. He tried. He did everything that he could possibly think of as a first responder to get them out. My question is, where was the fire department, and why didn't they put a ladder up to that window? Especially when they knew how hot the fire was burning and how smoke-filled and black, just horrific smoke was in the first floor of that house. They couldn't get through. They couldn't get up the stairs. Yeah, when he drove to the station to get his own mask and beat the fire truck back. There's something wrong here. And for people to sit and pretend like it's not, and that it's Galen's fault, come on, let's be real. I mean, it's just unbelievable. They took those 4 little babies out of that house before the coroner ever arrived and took them to the fire station and laid them on the concrete floor. What do you think that did to physical evidence? Who does that to children? It's absolutely ridiculous, you guys. It really is. And there's so much more to this than meets the eye. And and Lipsch is right. Who sees a house burning, knowing it's occupied, and calls their ex-in-law to gloat instead of 911? Why did it take so long for help to arrive? The windows and the ladder. The first person that witnessed the fire was a neighbor. Did you think that she called 911? She did not. She called Josh Ayers, the homeowner, to tell him that his house was on fire, knowing that there were 4 little girls in there with their mother, plus 2 other people that lived upstairs on the other side of the house, who got out, by the way. Yep. They shut it down. They shut it down tight. They shut it down. And I think they shut it down because they don't want sued for negligence, for what they did. Because in my opinion, there were so many mistakes made that night that cost those 4 little girls their lives, let alone the person who set the fire. And we do need a tenacious journalist to investigate it and ask the hard questions. And there's a group of YouTubers who are working this case, who are looking at this case and asking those hard questions and trying to figure out what can be done to get others to help. It needs to go national. This case needs to become viral nationally, and people need to talk about it and get somebody nationally to help cover it and talk about it and bring the spotlight down on Carroll County and what the heck is going on. Because we're going to be 7 years in November, and I don't see anything happening here. And it really bothered me, and it still bothers me to this day, that on the 31st of October, when they had the huge press conference to announce Richard Allen's arrest, Doug Carter stood at the podium and said, well, this morning I'd made a drive to Flora, and I sat outside that house across the street in the gravel parking area and looked at that house and was like, I hope one day we have the same resolution for these girls. And it's like, what the heck? Where is that coming from, Doug? Do you feel guilty, Doug? Trust me, I like Doug Carter. I think Doug Carter cares. I do think he has a heart, and that these 6 girls really, really burnt a hole in his heart. But for what he said about Galen and her family, all that did was tarnish their reputation in the media by making it seem like they were not cooperating with police, which is not the truth. There is no reason, none, that family does not want to help find who did this. There's none. And yeah, Mr. Steve's got a lot on his plate, Melissa, but he is interested in Flora. Yeah, Mist, I was very mad at Doug for that statement. Yeah, I couldn't believe it, Ray. You're right. I could never understand why one of the neighbors, if they didn't have a ladder quickly, why a neighbor couldn't have gotten a ladder and put up to that window. It made no sense to me. It still makes no sense to me. But yeah, there's so many. And Galen has a lawsuit going, and it's in federal district court, and it's going to be heard this year. It is like they want this case to go away. They certainly don't talk about it. They go sit in parking lots and stare at the house, obviously, but they don't talk about the case. They don't remember the 4 little girls that lost their lives, little girls who were destined to be more than just names on a concrete bench on the street corner in a town. Yeah, law enforcement hadn't been invited to talk with family members. Yeah, since when do police need an invitation to investigate a murder? Exactly. You need some information from the family, pull them in, interrogate them. I mean, what the heck? And that was it. How could somebody listen to those screams of those little girls and those babies and just stand by and do nothing? It's so sad. It just breaks my heart. And we're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep bringing the eyes back to Flora. I said it at the beginning of the year, and I'm going to continue, you guys. Flora needs covered, and we need to talk about it. And I am still trying to figure out a way to get this national attention. That the layout of that house, Lisa, you are so right. It is not safe in there. I can't believe that you had to go up the stairs, turn, and then go up a couple more stairs and turn to get to the girl's room. It's just horrible how those stairs worked in that house. And I don't know if that was done when they cut that house up to make it into an apartment, to where there was another apartment on the other side. But that needs to be looked at too, because I think that's negligent of how that stairwell was. Because Drew Yoder made it to the stairs, and you can hear Galen screaming at him, telling him which way to go. And he couldn't see, and he lost his bearings as to where he was, and he had to come running back out of the house. Well, all I can say is there was no other windows to break out on the upper floor. The only window would have been the girls' window. I don't know. But thanks, Sherry Faye. Yeah. Josh can be heard talking about slumlords a few days prior. And as far as I'm concerned, Josh is a slumlord. He didn't do the repairs that needed to be done at that house. So I pray and hope every day. I think about the girls. I wear my bracelet for the girls. I won't stop talking about them and defending Galen as long as I can, because we all know that there were new windows put in this house. They had new windows in that house. There has been a question out there on whether or not the windows were nailed shut by someone, because you would wonder why the 11-year-old girl wouldn't go to the window and try to get out through the window. Maybe she couldn't get it open. It's just unbelievable to me. Unbelievable. And you guys, you can go out on YouTube and search for the dash cam video. Let me see if I can find it real quick before we go. Hold on a second. Okay, I think I found it, guys. Just give me a minute to get it up here. Because this really brings a lot of it into perspective. And I will tell you that this is very triggering, you guys. So I want to give you that heads up.
Well, tonight, for the first time, you're about to see law enforcement video of the Flora arson fire.
More than 6 years ago, the fire claimed the lives of 4 young girls. They were sisters, ages 5 to 11. Their names were Kiani Welsh, Carrie L. McDonald, Kiara Phillips, and Kiana Davis.
The video that you're about to see will be difficult for some people to watch, but it does provide the clearest picture so far of the valiant but unsuccessful efforts to try and rescue those girls that night.
Chief Investigator Steve Brown has our exclusive story.
This story centers on Carroll County Sheriff's Deputy Drew Yoder. He suffered serious injuries attempting to reach the 4 girls killed in the Flora Fire. We have only ever heard from the deputy once at a brief news conference 6 weeks after the fire.
Some nights it brings tears to my eyes. Sometimes I try not to go past there, but I still think of those 4 little girls standing out there, dancing around, smiling at you, waving at you.
This is dash cam video of Yoder responding to the fire. You will only see what the camera is pointed at, but Yoder is wearing a microphone, and at times you will hear much more than you see.
Right.
Flora Police Officer Josh Dysinger arrives seconds before Yoder. The first voice you'll hear is the girl's mother, Galen Rose.
Where is it? Stay up. You're upstairs? Hot. Yeah. County. Send Cutler Fire as well. Get Cutler Fire in route as well. Yeah. Where are the kids? Upstairs? Where's the pictures? Stay around the corner to the left. Back it out. Guys, the next as well. Josh, you good? Josh, you good? I'm good. You good? I can't tell, man. I can't tell.
Inside the house, Yoder faced intense heat and thick smoke without protective gear while trying to climb this set of stairs. Then at the top, a landing on the left and another shorter set of stairs leading to the girl's bedroom. The girl's mother desperately tries to direct Yoder around that landing.
You go around the corner. Please. Let's go. Keep going.
But the smoke was too much.
Oh my. Guys, send tones. Keep sending off tones, please. We still got 4 kids inside. We can't get inside.
Yoder runs back to his car and races to the Flora Fire Department just 4 blocks away. The deputy is also a volunteer firefighter. The drive takes 24 seconds. He exits his car, races in, and yells to get the equipment moving.
Hey, we need to roll, dude. There's people inside.
For the next 45 seconds, it sounds like Yoder is getting into his turnout gear. He then runs back to his car, races back to the scene with fire trucks just behind him.
Hey, they're coming. They're right here, dude. They're right here. They're coming.
Both Deputy Yoder and Officer Deisinger quickly put on air packs to re-enter the house. If you look here, you can see one of them entering, crawling on hands and knees. Just seconds later, something has gone wrong. At 3:45, an emergency call goes out. Officer down. Other firefighters are now working to rescue Yoder while still trying to reach the 4 girls. And as the fire starts moving more rapidly right to left, from the back of the house to the front door, an alarm sounds, signaling an air pack low on oxygen. Firefighters would reach Yoder and the 4 girls and bring them out. Feverish attempts at CPR were performed on the girls without success. Yoder was rushed to the hospital. At the same time, flames engulfed the entire house. The last thing we see on the video is an advanced life support vehicle pulling up just before 4 a.m. It would be almost 2 months before it was announced the fire was an arson. In the 6+ years since, the investigation has not produced an arrest. Before making our final decision to air the dash cam video, we did show it to Galen Rose at her request. She supports airing the video. It is her hope that it will generate tips from the public that might finally bring this case to a close. That number is 1-800-382-4628. You do not have to give your name to provide information. Steve Brown, Fox 59 Investigates.
I hope someone out there knows something about this case. Steve, thank you. You can take a closer look at that video at fox59.com. It's there, edited only for profanity. You can also see all of our coverage on the investigation into the Flora Fire on our website as well. Leah.
I'm sorry, guys. It really makes me cry to see this video. And know what those babies went through. And it's just, it's so hard. It's just so hard. I cannot believe that he got to that fire department and had to tell them to hurry the hell up. And I agree with you 100%. There was no urgency. There was no sense of emergency by the fire department at all. And I think that is why they have shut this down, because they are afraid of being sued as a city. And she could sue the city. It's volunteer, Josh. It's all volunteer. And I understand that volunteer fire departments, there's a lot of great volunteer fire departments in this country. I have always said I have such great respect for firemen, anybody or women who are willing to go into a burning building to rescue people. It takes a really special person to not have a fear of doing that. And I'm sure they have some fear, but they're just special people. Oh, there was people at the station. You can hear him. And it makes you I don't know. I don't know, Sherry. I have not heard that there was only one there. I know that he said, guys, I think there were more than one there. And he was like, what are you doing? You can hear it in his voice. Well, we can watch it again if you want, and it's got the time of everything on it. So hold on a second. We'll watch it one more time, and that way you guys can watch the time, because they tell you the time. It took him 24 seconds to get from the house to the fire department, 4 blocks away, 500 yards.
Well, tonight, for the first time, you're about to see law enforcement video of the Flora arson fire.
More than 6 years ago, the fire claimed the lives of 4 young girls. They were sisters, ages 5 to 11. Their names were Kiani Welsh, Carrie McDonald, Kiara Phillips, and Kiana Davis.
The video that you're about to see will be difficult for some people to watch, but it does provide the clearest picture so far of the valiant but unsuccessful efforts to try and rescue those girls that night.
Chief Investigator Steve Brown has our exclusive story.
This story centers on Carroll County Sheriff's Deputy Drew Yoder. He suffered serious injuries attempting to reach the 4 girls killed in the Flora Fire. We have only ever heard from the deputy once at a brief news conference 6 weeks after the fire.
Some nights it brings tears to my eyes. Sometimes I try not to go past her. But I still think of those 4 little girls standing out there, dancing around, smiling at you, waving at you.
This is dash cam video of Yoder responding to the fire. You will only see what the camera is pointed at, but Yoder is wearing a microphone, and at times you will hear much more than you see.
Right.
Flora police officer Josh Dysinger arrives seconds before Yoder. The first voice you'll hear is the girl's mother, Galen Rose.
Where is it? Stay up. Go upstairs. Hot. Yeah. County. Send Cutler Fire as well. Get Cutler Fire in there as well. Yeah. Where are the kids? Upstairs. One's upstairs. Stay around the corner to the left. Back it down. County, send medics as well. Josh, you good? Josh, you good? I'm good. You good? I can't tell, man. I can't tell.
Inside the house, Yoder faced intense heat and thick smoke without protective gear while trying to climb this set of stairs. Then at the top, a landing on the left and another shorter set of stairs leading to the girl's bedroom. The girl's mother desperately tries to direct Yoder around that landing.
You go around the corner. Please. Let's go. Go around the corner. Keep going.
But the smoke was too much.
Oh my. County, send town. Keep sending off town, please. We still got 4 kids inside. We can't get inside.
Yoder runs back to his car and races to the Flora Fire Department just 4 blocks away. The deputy is also a volunteer firefighter. The drive takes 24 seconds. He exits his car, races in, and yells to get the equipment moving.
Hey, clean the roll, dude. There's people inside.
For the next 45 seconds, it sounds like Yoder is getting into his turnout gear. He then runs back to his car, races back to the scene with fire trucks just behind him.
Hey, they're coming. They're right here, dude. They're right here. They're coming.
Both Deputy Yoder and Officer Dysinger quickly put on air packs to re-enter the house. If you look here, you can see one of them entering, crawling on hands and knees. Just seconds later, something has gone wrong. At 3:45, an emergency call goes out. Officer down.
So I'm going to stop it here for a second, because when he says that they go back inside here, but something goes terribly wrong, it's hard to know exactly what happened then at that point. Was there some sort of an explosion? Was there some sort of something happened, something really bad, because you can hear Drew Yoder screaming. And it sounds like he's in horrific pain. So I don't know what happened here, but something happened. And then the next thing you know is he's down, and they're calling officer down, and you can hear his beacon going off.
Other firefighters are now working to rescue Yoder while still trying to reach the 4 girls. And as the fire starts moving more rapidly right to left, from the back of the house to the front door, an alarm sounds, signaling an air pack low on oxygen. Firefighters would reach Yoder and the 4 girls and bring them out. Feverish attempts at CPR were performed on the girls without success.
Hang on a second. I'm going to stop this. I agree. I think something exploded. And it sounds like he was on fire. I mean, as fast as the flames from that point on started coming out of this house, it's just crazy. This here, I believe, is an outside porch light, but I'm not positive about that. But there is light here in this window. I don't know if that's fire, if that's flames that we're seeing here or not.
Yoder was rushed to the hospital.
Yeah, that's fire. So that was,
at the same time,
we were seeing
flames engulfed the entire house. The last thing we see on the video is an advanced life support vehicle pulling up just before 4 a.m.
It all happened in about 15 minutes. Within 20 minutes, everybody was there to put the fire out. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Yeah, there's a bright white flash. It's almost like something happened. It's terrible. Yeah, he's on fire, I think. It's just terrible. And it makes you wonder if his oxygen tank exploded. I don't know. Something awful happened though.
It would be almost 2 months before it was announced the fire was an arson. In the 6+ years since, the investigation has not produced an arrest. Before making our final decision to air the dash cam video, we did show it to Galen Rose at her request. She supports airing the video. It is her hope that it will generate tips from the public that might finally bring this case to a close. That number is 1-800-382-4628. You do not have to give your name to provide information.
So, you know what, guys? I don't know. I just know that I can't say it enough. For all the years I've been following this case and trying to figure out why it was not being covered, why the Indiana State Police does not talk about it at all, except to say that, they're working it and it's not a cold case. There's just too many red flags. And I do believe that there is a want to hush this up. And I think that there was a lot of negligence that went on that night. I agree with people that were watching this with me tonight that said that they saw people just standing around. Those were the neighbors that came out of their homes and was just standing there. You just never see any major firemen assisting. You see Yoder and you see Dissinger. And that's the only thing that we see. Yeah, there's a floor plan of the house. I think you can find that on the Flora Fire Reddit subreddit. Yeah, you do. And Lipsha's right. You have less than 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And if you have children and you live in a multi-story home, you need to have a fire escape plan. You never know when you may need it, and you need to practice it. And you need to make sure. They even make those ladders that you can keep inside the window of a second floor room that you can use yourself, that you can throw out and climb down. They make those. But I'm just saying, if you've got a mother who's struggling to raise her 4 children, working her butt off, she didn't need to have to do that. This was a rental property. This was up to her landlords. And as you guys could see, that house was not in great condition. And this was not up to Galen to make her home safe. It was up to the landlords renting that space to make it safe. Hey, Grismatically, how are you, my dear? So good to see you always. I would like to, I wish I could have or find a fireman who would be willing to come on and analyze that dash cam video and to see what they have going, what they think. I understand, Lipsha. Josh Dissinger is very suspect as well to me, because he is a perfect candidate for the arsonist that is the hero. He has been the hero in more fires than I care to count in Carroll County. he has been the hero to save them. And I know that that's been put out there, and it's very suspect. And I hope that law enforcement has looked at that, because they certainly have given him a number of awards. Fire is very, very hard because of the thick smoke that is created by it. And when you have older structures, as this house was, yes, Josh, Dissinger is the other officer. He's the officer that arrived first. He was the car that arrived first in front of Drew Yoder. Yeah. And Galen Rose does say that when she first ran out of her house, she saw someone in full fire gear standing in the front lawn watching. So was she seeing that? Was she hoping to see that? If somebody was standing there, and just watching, that is something that's crazy, in my opinion. It's okay. You just use the initials, Josh. You're good. You're good. Yes, Ray, he has. Yes, he has. And he's saved a lot of people. He's pulled a lot of people out of fires. Yeah. So, yeah, guys, I mean, it's a crazy case. There's just a lot. It's a lot more than just a cut and dried arson case. And there's just I mean, if you want to talk about tentacles and different things, this is one to really deep dive and look at and take a look at. And again, we've got 4 little sisters that no longer are with us, that don't have their lives anymore, and it's almost like they've been forgotten. And I know that there are people in that community that loved them. Their school teachers talked about them and how they were such good, well-behaved little girls. They were always so friendly. They would stand on the street corner outside their house and wave to people who were driving by. That's how Drew Yoder knew them, because he always saw them out there waving at him as he was driving on his beat, doing his Carroll County sheriff duties. And yes, Yoder was a volunteer fireman, and when he ran back to the firehouse, they believe that he got into his gear. But even in that, it only took him seconds to do that. And there is something seriously wrong in Flora, Indiana, in this case. So, and the fact that they won't let anybody talk to him is very suspect. Yoder is not, he did make a statement right after he got out of the hospital, but nothing about that night specifically as to what he encountered or what happened. No. Yeah, older homes tend to go up. A lot of older homes have asbestos in them. They have lead in the paint. There's all kinds of things that you have with older homes too. But yeah, they're dry and they go up. This went up like a matchstick. which is why they said, there was accelerants, and the accelerants that they've found, there has been talk that the accelerant is not your normal accelerant. This is something that burned very hot. And according to the fire chief's father, who was Dennis Randall, he was the chief fire inspector for the state of Indiana at the time. And he said that there was multiple locations in the home where there was accelerants. And as soon as he started talking about that, they shut him down and ended up forcing him out of his job. And that's what I've heard. The friends that I have here personally that are firemen, they said that, when you have children in a home that's burning, a lot of your protocol does go out the window. The most important thing is to get to them, is to reach them. And like I said, rather than go into the house burning, crazy smoke, all the stuff that was going on, they were already in once. Drew was already in there once with Dissinger, and they knew that they couldn't get to them. They tried. You heard them coughing. He comes running out, goes back to the firehouse, gets in his gear, gets his oxygen tank and his mask, comes back to the house knowing that he couldn't get up those stairs. Why wasn't there screaming, where the hell's the ladder? Why don't we try to get him from the window? That will never make any sense to me. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm sorry I got really emotional there. I'm sorry I let Ann Johnson screw with my emotions and make me mad. I usually try not to let that happen. You guys know that I am passionate about Flora. I'm passionate about Delphi, and I'm passionate about not re-victimizing these families. They've gone through so much and so much hell, and I just can't deal with people that buy into some of the narrative that gets spread around this case. Because I do believe that there is a reason for it. And I'm not completely 100% sure that there's not something trying to be covered up because of negligence and not wanting to be sued. It's a very difficult one. It's a very difficult case, and it is one that gets my emotions going. Those little girls didn't deserve what happened to them that night. And I know everybody says, oh, it's tragic. It's worse than tragic. I don't know of any worse way of dying than suffocation and being burned. I'm just saying. I will always work for Galen and her voice to keep this case alive until we get some sort of resolution. And I'm one of those people that try to remain positive. I believe that we will get a resolution to this case at some point. I know arson is hard to prove, and I know that it's not easy. I'm not saying that it is, But there were a lot of things that went wrong that night that should not have. And those are hard questions that need to be answered by law enforcement and by the fire department. And it's just mind-boggling to me that we still have Doug Carter shutting people down, and we've got the Carroll County sheriff shutting people down from talking and keeping people from talking, and using the guise that, well, this is still an open investigation, and therefore, no, that's not how it works. So good night, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. For all of you who watched my replay of the live stream, please make sure you subscribe and press the like button. That is the best way that you can help me to stay in the algorithm for YouTube so that my channel gets shown more on YouTube. The channel is growing. It's growing very nicely, and I appreciate all of you so very much. And we're going to keep hitting it, you guys. We're going to keep fighting for these families. And I love all of my moderators. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And Maria, thank you so much for always being my sounding board and being there for me after these emotional shows. So I appreciate all of you. Good night, everyone. Stay safe, and make sure you guys get ready for the NCAA tournament. It starts this weekend. It actually starts on Thursday. And if you guys who know me, I am a huge NCAA fan. So my alma mater, University of Arizona. So that's who I'm rooting for. So good night, everybody. Much love to all of you.
Thank you.